We have been hearing a lot about ROUSD recently, and one of the most recent announcements was the fact that ROUSD became a top 5 USD stablecoin. Now that was shortly lived, but still it did happen for a little bit of time. Now, the main thing that I really want to focus on in this video is this number 3 here, which is institutional infrastructure. BNY Global was selected to custody ROUSD reserves, further strengthening institutional trust and attestations by Deloitte for added transparency. BNY Global is a massive name. In fact, we've talked about them many times over in the past. If we look into BNY, just going off of this about section here, okay, they touch nearly 20% of the world's investable assets. They help over 90% of the Fortune 100 companies and nearly all of the top 100 banks globally access the money they need. BNY is an absolute giant. Why am I bringing this up? Well, pay attention, because in this video, we have a lot to go over. And the main thing that we're looking at is the DTCC. Let's start off by looking into some of the recent announcements with ROUSD, because again, we have been witnessing so many big expansions around ROUSD, including, of course, a bank. It was the first European bank to go live with Ripple payments. This was definitely a big one, especially considering the fact that, this is all tapping in around ROUSD with Ripple payments. A bank is one of the, first European banks, one of many future ones as well. And the main focus here is, of course, solving for that major friction, where we could start to see efficient cross-border transactions become a reality. And it's all through blockchain and stablecoins. This was definitely a big one. And then also on top of that, ROUSD is now officially recognized as an accepted fiat currency in Abu Dhabi. We're starting to see so many big announcements and advancements around ROUSD, and one of the core ones that we are still waiting on the edge of our seats for is clarity. We have over here, and this is from Wormhole and Bank XRP. Bank XRP did repost it, and he said US stablecoin compliance will soon push Ripple ROUSD to a top, we're not talking about top 5, to a top stablecoin globally by issuance with multi-chain movement powered by Wormhole. This is the co-founder of Wormhole Foundation saying, have to imagine this level of US stablecoin compliance will soon push ROUSD to a top stablecoin globally by issuance with multi-chain movements powered by Wormhole. Because again, if we're thinking about what's happening, ROUSD is uniquely positioned. It's uniquely positioned by the sense of, having that full-on transparency, having that institutional backing from Ripple already. It's 100% compliant. And on top of that, right, we already know that Tether, the top stablecoin issuer, already had to reinvent their stablecoin to operate in the US. And this is because of many compliance issues. ROUSD never had to do that because it had compliance and transparency built into it since day one. This is very important, especially when we think about clarity hitting the space. That's going to push everything that Ripple is doing. It's not even just about their stablecoin. Everything that Ripple is focused on all of a sudden gets pushed in a much larger way with clarity. Now, on top of that, institutional adoption. Ripple recently posted a video talking about why are institutions moving to stablecoins. It comes down to 3 things: speed, reach, and flexibility. Now, this is from Lauren Berta, stablecoin product lead at Ripple. She's breaking down the shift in crypto in 1 minute. From real-time settlement to putting programmability in the hands of treasurers, see how stablecoins like ROUSD are evolving the way money moves. Listen closely.
Crypto's so complex. It's so hard to describe in a minute. My name is Lauren Berta, and this is Crypto in a Minute. Why are institutions using stablecoins for payments? Stablecoins are a great new payment method because they give businesses and institutions the ability to access real-time settlement. And so, I want to send payroll out. And I don't want that hundreds of thousands of dollars stuck in a payment in a wire, for example, for 3 days, or an ACH for a week, while I'm trying to manage liquidity for my broader business. It'd be much better if I could use those funds as much as I wanted until that payroll actually needs to go out. On top of that, stablecoins give access to sort of the more global cross-border payment ecosystem. I can use a stablecoin to send to any jurisdiction around the world, which for more and more businesses is becoming vital. And then on top of that, stablecoins put the programmability of payments into a treasurer's hands. So today, if you want automated cash sweeps every night, you can get that 5 days a week from a bank, probably, if they have the product. But with stablecoins, you can program that yourself and do it whenever you want.
Yeah, listen, when we think about the power of stablecoins, the power of crypto, I mean, listen, this is going to change almost everything from, even remittances to institutional players to treasurers, you name it. The power here lies within those three main things: speed, reach, and flexibility. It's everything on why crypto itself continues to, be adopted and focused on. It's the power behind these digital rails. It's also why players like the DTCC are innovating, utilizing tokenization. Now, we know on December 11th, they got the green light from the SEC to tokenize certain DTC custodied assets. This is going to be leveraging blockchain. It's going to bridge TradFi and DeFi. Now, you might be wondering, Nick, why are you bringing this back up? Well, it's because on the 23rd, the DTCC and BNY Global announced that the DTCC's FICC subsidiary has officially launched its collateral in lieu service under its sponsored general collateral offering and via BNY's global collateral platform, with BNY Securities Finance and Federated Hermes successfully executing the first repo trade on the new solution. This is very interesting at a time where they are tapping into tokenization in a big way. And if we're looking into what they're doing here, all right, they're starting to accelerate the transition to central clearing under the SEC's U.S. Treasury clearing mandate. Now, what does this really involve? Well, it doesn't really break too much down. However, we do know that all of these players are tapping into new technologies. I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see new technologies being tapped in here with, for example, blockchain, tokenization, etc. They don't really give us too much of an insight into it, but the main focus here is, of course, the BNY Global and DTCC connection, because we already know that BNY Global was selected to custody ROUSD reserves, and this goes all the way back to roughly July. BNY Global is the primary reserves custodian for ROUSD, an enterprise-grade stablecoin built for a real-world utility supported by one of the largest and most trusted financial services companies in the world. Now, if you look into this, Ripple and BNY are jointly committed to paving the way for digital asset adoption at institutional scale, and together are bridging the gap between traditional finance and crypto, the same exact thing that DTCC is doing with tokenization. And what's crazy about this is we also know that this is all to change the way things are working in the institutional environments. We even have down here that Ripple's USD addresses a critical gap in the markets as a stablecoin developed for enterprise-grade financial use cases designed to meet the rigorous standards of leading financial institutions. BNY brings together demonstrable custody expertise and a strong commitment to financial innovation in this rapidly changing landscape, as well as a forward-thinking approach to digital asset infrastructure, making them the ideal partner for Ripple and ROUSD. So this is not only just them, being the primary custody provider for ROUSD, but they're also a partner of Ripple's now as well. As a primary custodian for ROUSD, we're proud to support the growth of digital assets by providing a differentiated platform designed to meet the evolving needs of institutions in the digital assets ecosystem. As a leading financial platforms company, we remain committed to providing secure, innovative, and streamlined solutions that empower financial ecosystems worldwide, and we're proud to work closely with Ripple as we propel the future of the financial system and digital asset adoption at institutional scale. So if we're looking into this logically, okay, they just mentioned a few things. The first one here is that as a primary custodian for ROUSD, we're proud to support the growth of digital assets by providing a differentiated platform. Well, the announcement with the DTCC, it's talking about this new solution, all through BNY's global collateral platform. Is that the platform in question here? It definitely could be. However, they don't really give us an insight into that. But on top of that, we do know that BNY Mellon recently launched a money market fund for stablecoin reserves aligned with the Genius Act on November 13th. Technically speaking, this would include ROUSD because this is all based around USD based stablecoins aligned with the Genius Act, which, by the way, the ROUSD stablecoin that Ripple launched is also compliant with. These connections are very significant. I'm not saying that the DTCC will utilize the XRP ledger or tap into Ripple, but it wouldn't surprise me if at some point in time, we got a connection back to Ripple through one of these players like BNY, for an example, that we know is working with Ripple closely. And to wrap this video up, I want to go back to December 4th, where we got that video clip from Ripple talking about efficient programmable 24/7. Stablecoins like ROUSD are driving a global transformation in finance. Because again, let's go back to what the DTCC is doing, right? They're starting to tap into tokenized assets. The best way to move these tokenized assets is by settling them in stablecoins. ROUSD could definitely be that stablecoin, and listen closely to just the power of what a stablecoin can do for the financial system.
So we at BCG, we're super optimistic when it comes to stablecoins. By 2030, we estimated and expect that 2.5 to 3 trillion of US dollar will be in stablecoins.
Stablecoins are having a moment, and Ripple's RLUSD is having a moment. We believe those issuers that have the most enterprise-grade focus on regulation, compliance, and transparency will be those that prevail.
So yeah, I mean, listen, we are at a very, very big moment for digital assets. I mean, it's crazy that people are not seeing how big this really is, because again, like if we think about how finance is all moving on chain, we need fiat currencies on chain as well. That's why ROUSD, in my opinion, is much bigger than just, oh, it's a Ripple-based stablecoin. No, I think that it's much bigger considering the fact that it is so fully compliant, has some of the largest players tied back to it, and also with Ripple getting that conditional approval of their, national bank charter license. Once that gets fully approved, ROUSD is going to be on a completely different level than both Circle's USDC and even Tether's USDT. I would argue that ROUSD is already, ahead of USDT. But if we think about USDC, that's what will set ROUSD apart from it. Ripple and their stablecoin, it's operating on a completely different level at this moment. And with some of these connections like BNY going all the way back to even the DTCC, it's pretty clear that we're starting to see some sort of path form to some of the biggest innovations happening in this space. Let's also not forget that the CEO of the DTCC also mentioned that with tokenization, we're going to tap into the most efficient distributed ledger technologies in this space and what this space has to offer. I think we know that the XRP ledger is one of the most efficient chains in this space for moving, settling, and bridging value. The future is very bright for both Ripple and XRP. And then when you mix in ROUSD, you could start to see a much bigger picture here. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.